May 21st, 2025, it's Talkin' Giants, brought to you by SeatGeek. I am Justin Penik, and today I'm going to be joined by running back for the New York Football Giants, Tyrone Tracy Jr. And before I get into kind of what we did, and, you know, I do want to talk a little bit about Tyrone Tracy's rookie season as well. Before we get into all that, this was a lot of fun, kind of having him in the office and, you know, him being here. He's a really, really good dude. He's really down to earth. He's super energetic. I think he gets this media stuff. I really appreciate people, and he was like excited to come here. I really appreciate when guys kind of know us and when guys kind of know what we're about, that we're not trying to play like gotcha journalism, like come here and kind of be yourself. And Tyrone Tracy was 100% that. His girlfriend Zoe was here too. She was really nice. So I can't thank Tyrone Tracy enough for coming by. It was a lot of fun. So we had this interview for about like 17 or 18 minutes, and it gets better as it goes. Much like when you first meet somebody, and the more that you talk with them, the more that you kind of get to know them. Then from here, you're not going to see it, but it's all going to be put out on our socials and stuff like that. Brought him into the green screen room, and we did like some guess the result of the play. Like there are certain plays that he was part of where he kind of walked me through them, and he broke them down in a way. Guess the teammate college edition. I showed him pictures of his Giants teammates when they were in college. You got to tell me who they are. And man, he was like, he got that automatic. And he's saying throughout the whole thing, know your teammates, it's important. Know your teammates, it's important. And I think that kind of shows you the kind of dude and the kind of teammate that he is. We answered some Twitter questions as well. I tweeted out on Sunday night. It was like, hypothetically, if you were to ask Tyrone Tracy Jr. a question, what would you ask him? So if I ever tweet that out again, then maybe there's a chance that a Giants player may be swinging by the office. So make sure you respond to that. Thank you to everybody who submitted a question. I took 7 of them. He did the height chart. We have a height chart at the Jomboy Media Office for everybody that comes and visits. We did like target practice and like the reaction video where those little like cylinders like drop and you have to react and you have to catch them all. And he fucking crushed it. So really appreciated Tyrone Tracy. He was awesome. Really down to earth dude. Had a good time. Said like 3 times as he was walking out the door and by the elevator, like, yeah, had a good time. And that was awesome. So hope you enjoyed the interview. But before that, I kind of do want to talk to you about Tyrone Tracy Jr.'s rookie year. I looked up some stats. I looked up some trends of his rookie year and how there are some ways where I think he can get better. He even hinted at in the interview. I love that he hinted at while we were talking that, hey, like I've done this process already, and now heading into the second year, kind of know what to expect, and the learning curve isn't going to be there. And that's honestly one of the reasons why I think Tyrone Tracy Jr. can be even better than what he was last year. And then put on top of that a more diverse Giants backfield, and hopefully, knock on wood, a healthier team too. But Tyrone Tracy Jr., I think you can say that a season either went in like 2 or 3 different phases and waves, depending on how you want to look at it. Because the first 4 weeks of the season, he really wasn't involved in the game plan at all. Didn't really get carries. And then you have weeks 5 to 10, where the Giants have one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL. And then everything kind of falls apart there when it comes with injuries and the QB situation. I mean, Tracy even talked about that in the interview a little bit. But I want to talk about weeks 5 to 10, because that's when the Giants played the Seahawks, the Bengals. They got blown out by the Eagles, the Steelers, the Washington Commanders, that second game, and then the Carolina Panthers. So they only won 1 game during this stretch, and it was week 5. But over that period, the Giants' rushing attack, it was kind of freaking good, and it was kind of awesome. Between weeks 5 to 10, they had the number 5 rushing offense in terms of EPA per rush, and they were number 2 in success rate. So I did that 6-game gap between weeks 5 to 10, and that was where Tyrone Tracy, anytime that he had a 100-yard game, he didn't have a 100-yard game after week 10 and after that Carolina Panthers game. And really, besides the Colts game, nobody on the Giants offense really had like this tremendous game if your name isn't Malik Neighbors. So nobody on the Giants offense really prospered besides Malik Neighbors towards the end of the season. But in that 6-game span between weeks 5 to 10, and on a 6-game sample size, it's not huge, and we operate in a sport where sample sizes aren't that big, but it's also not nothing. So between weeks 5 to 10, Tyrone Tracy, here were his ranks among running backs with at least 37 carries. He was third in the NFL in rushing yards during that period, 347 yards. 41% of his rushing yards came in these 6 games. He was fourth in yards per attempt, 11th in missed tackles forced, fourth in runs of 10-plus yards with 9. Half of his 10-yard runs on the season came during this 6-game stretch. And he was 8th in breakaway rate as well. He talked a lot in the interview about how explosivity and being explosive, that was one of his goals of this offseason. And I think with, offensive line stays healthy. And also, I think just more important, rather than just, all right, the Giants' offensive line being better and then him being better, the Giants' passing game being somewhat of a prevalent and relevant thing is going to help out every single person and every single running back in that backfield. And here's really why, because I hope that the Giants continue to play the game of we're going to run the ball when we have good matchups and we're winning the numbers game up front. Meaning, like if we have 6 blockers or 7 blockers, if we have 6 blockers and there's 8 guys in the box, that's not necessarily a winning formula. If we have 5 guys that are going to be blockers on this play and one, and maybe motion in a wide receiver as the 6, but there are 7, 8 guys in the box because they're stacking the box because nobody respects the Giants' ability to throw the ball deep, then your run game effectiveness is going to get worse from there, as we all know. And I think you could see it among the splits of Tyrone Tracy, where he had rushing attempts out of the shotgun and where he had rushing attempts under center. Out of the shotgun, he had 92 attempts, and under center, he had 100 rush attempts. So that's pretty even. And the Giants were, especially with Tyrone Tracy, they were one of the teams in the NFL that ran under center one of the lowest amounts, like 17th lowest under center rate. Tyrone Tracy received his carries, and he had the 9th most attempts out of the shotgun in the NFL among running backs. Now, out of the shotgun, he averaged 4.9 yards per carry. Under center, 3.9 yards per carry. Out of the shotgun, Tyrone Tracy was 8th in the NFL in total yards. He was 21st in rushing yards over expected per attempt, but it's positive. So I always consider that's a stat where the over expected metric, if you're positive in that, that's a good sign. And he was 12th in yards per carry at 4.9, like I said, which is pretty damn good. 5 yards per carry out of the shotgun, pretty damn good. That's a success. Under center, he was 23rd in yards per carry among running backs, and he was 30th out of 41 running backs in EPA per attempt. So I think I think Brian Dable did actually, looking at these numbers, and at the time I think I had a critique in season of I want them to run out of the shotgun more. Well, they did run out of the shotgun a ton, and you can't there is a value as to running under center, and they had some really nice runs under center against the Steelers and the Seahawks. Like some of their more explosive runs this year have been when they are under center. But I think the integration of Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston or even Jackson Dart, like all these quarterbacks with somewhat arms, with arms that are willing to explore and throw deep down the field and actually have some sort of presence of a deep passing game. I think that's going to help out Tyrone Tracy. I think it's going to help out Cam Scatterbo. I think it's going to help out Devin Singletary. It should help out every single one of these running backs more. And I'm not saying that the Giants are going to have a top 5 rushing attack just like they had in weeks 5 to 10. They faced some bad run defenses. Like the Seahawks were actually a better run defense than you think last year. But I would still consider their defense to not be awesome. The Bengals' run defense was awful, even though Tracy only had 50 yards in that game. The Steelers game was the one that made me go like, whoa. But the Steelers, what they did is they didn't put a lot of guys in the box. There were some runs where Tyrone Tracy is getting the ball, and there's 6 guys in the box, and there's 6 blockers, and all Tyrone Tracy has to do is make one guy miss, and that's how you see a touchdown that he had, like the 45-yard touchdown where Minkah Fitzpatrick is tackling him at the 1-yard line, and he kind of stays right in bounds long enough to fall into the end zone. That's where you see some of those big runs where, hey, there's 6 guys in the box, 5 guys in the box. That's why I think running out under center was not successful for the Giants this year, because when you're running under center, typically it's with bigger personnel, it's with 12 personnel, 13 personnel, and then when you have bigger personnel on the field, when you have more tight ends on the field and bigger bodies on the field, you're putting more guys in the box, and I just don't think this Giants offensive line, and I guess this is a little bit of a worry, knowing that this Giants offensive line didn't make any upgrades this offseason. We'll see. I don't expect Marcus Bowe to start right away. I don't expect this Giants offensive line to be a mauling offensive line. Like, they're just moving heaven and earth, and they're moving people off their spots. That's why I think they're better running out of the shotgun and when there's less guys in the box and kind of playing that game versus under center and playing smash mouth football. This is not a smash mouth football team. This is not a smash mouth offensive line that I think can just pound people, especially at the guard spot. I think JMS can kind of do it. I think JMS can move people out of a spot. I think JMS is athletic. I think John Runyon had some plays where he was pulling out in space, but I don't consider like Greg Van Roten and John Runyon to be like these big maulers. So that's why I think they were better running out of the shotgun compared to under center. So there you go. There's some thoughts on Tyrone Tracy's rookie year. Yeah, the splits between shotgun and under center. I talked about weeks 5 through 10 and how they were actually pretty good. And if you look at those 6 games, Tyrone Tracy was, third in the NFL in rushing yards. So that's kind of cool. Hopefully we see more of that from Tyrone Tracy Jr. And let's actually get to the interview. But before that, I want to talk to you about SeatGeek because this episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. The MLB season is underway, and the NBA and NHL playoffs are coming down the stretch with SeatGeek, the MLB's official ticket marketplace. Your tickets are fully guaranteed and instantly fulfilled in your account after purchase. And with our partners at SeatGeek, you can now get 10% off any tickets with code GIANTS2025. Tyrone Tracy was at the Yankee game on Sunday night. He was watching Sunday Night Baseball. He was hanging out with Russell Wilson. Probably going to see Tyrone Tracy at some Knicks games, so you never know. You may run into Tyrone Tracy. You may run into any of these Giants players, especially like, hey, Russ is everywhere, and it's kind of cool. I like when players embrace that. 28 million downloads. That's how many SeatGeek. That's how many downloads SeatGeek has. And as you know, they're the number 1 rated ticketing app in the world. And you know we came through for you guys. Use code GIANTS2025 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code GIANTS2025. Thank you to SeatGeek. Thank you to Tyrone Tracy for coming in the office and for talking with me. Here is Tyrone Tracy. I hope you enjoy it. I want to welcome on New York Giants running back Tyrone Tracy. I'm sure you never get tired of hearing that. Thanks for being here, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Appreciate y'all having me out here.
Oh, thank you. Dude, first off, I'll tell you from a fan standpoint, from Giants fan standpoint, like, we're pretty united right now and haven't been this united as like a fan base in terms of, general feeling about a team heading into a year in quite a while. So what's the energy you're feeling? Obviously haven't been in the building a ton.
Yep.
You're going to be more on the field next week during OTAs, but what's the general feeling heading into this year? Second year with this class, Drew, you, Leak, Tyler Nubin, all those guys kind of dominate, and then you drafted a bunch of head cases this year. So, what's the feeling heading into this year?
I think it's excitement is the word for it. Obviously we got some guys in the offseason that brings a little bit more excitement back to the team. But I think after the draft last year and the draft this year, a lot of people have a lot of stuff to look forward to. Obviously, we had a good rookie class that did, a lot of stuff on the field, produced well. Obviously everyone's looking for us to, take that next step. But then, like I said, there's new dudes on the block too, that's coming in, ready to work, ready to, to produce as well. So I think we have some good dudes. I think we have some of the pieces to the puzzle. But we got to put it together. We got to put it on film.
For you, what's the biggest difference heading into year 2? Maybe something that or that you're confident in right now that this time last year you either didn't know or like you knew that you had to overcome.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was knowledge. The speed of the game really slows down when you have knowledge. And experience as well. I think knowledge and experience goes hand in hand. The more games you play, the more knowledgeable you become. So I think this time last year, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was just trying to make the team. I was just, going out there and put my best foot forward and, whatever happens. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm doing the same thing, but I know what to expect. I know, the routine and what to look for when I'm going through practice, but then also like how to get ready for a game.
Yeah. Weeks 5 through 10 last year, Giants run game, you were humming. Like 41% of your yards came from those weeks. If you want a nerd stat, the Giants offense was like second in success rate during those weeks too. So basically, what did you learn from the high of those? Basically, those were your first 6 games where you were fully starting. And then kind of like the final 7. So basically, I almost like look at your season almost like in those kind of two halves. Like, tell me about like the difference between those two, and kind of what did you learn from like the highs of that?
Yeah. The first thing I learned is that, like, I'm here for a reason. I can do this. You know. Everyone has that moment in their career where they're like, that self-belief is, clarified. It's there. It's on film. And I think that was for me last year. Is like I just clarified it for myself that, like, I'm here for a reason. I can actually play at a high level in this league. That was the first thing I noticed, and I also noticed that at the first half was, when healthy, we have a really damn good offense. That's the second thing that I would say about that first half. And obviously, you go to the second half, we get injuries, you get people going down, people we having to play mismatch with the offensive line and whatnot. In the quarterback situation, all that stuff happens.
Yep.
So like, it's a difference when you have your staples playing, and you have the guys on the front five, out there putting in work, and they're healthy and they're actually going to work. And you can see it, like you said. You just said we was number 2 went during the 5 to 10 weeks. So like, it's definitely evident, when we're healthy versus when we're not healthy.
What do you think? Obviously continuity, everybody playing together. Especially since everybody's so new over the summer, and then you kind of get to those, you kind of get to the month of October, then you guys were kind of hitting your stride. But what, besides everybody kind of just being together, particularly you and the rushing offense, what kind of made it click within that month or so?
I would probably say, I think my running style kind of helped.
Yeah, I would say you.
Yeah, I would say help. Yeah, I would say my running style helped out. I guess you could say I'm very patient, with what I do. If you watch my film, like, I'm very patient with how I run. And you also got to know your offensive line as well. You got to know if they're, going to be some killers and like going to try to, like, pancake guys, or they're just going to be, brick walls, basically. That's what I call them. If they're just going to be there and like hold the guy up, not move him very far, but they'll hold him up. So you got to know your offensive line. And, like I said, for me, I'm very patient. So like, I allow my offensive line to do work, to get their blocks and try to help them out, set up the blocks and make them look good at the end of the day.
It's funny you mention how patient you are. But did you know that you're like in the top quarter? I'm gonna let you know I'm a fucking nerd. All right, I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna let you know.
All the stats.
I'm letting you know right now. And it's like, well, don't talk to guys about stats, but I'm talking about stats because you mentioned you're patient.
Yeah.
Would it surprise you if I told you that you were like top quarter in the league and the least amount of time behind the line of scrimmage? Like average time behind the line.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's pretty
to
nice.
Be patient, but also get past the line quick.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
You were talking about injuries kind of before, just in general with the offense, but your first year, 192 attempts, 38 catches, 17 games across last year, 651 snaps. That was, I think, the most volume that you've gotten like in your football career so far.
Yep.
So how was your kind of like your first experience with the rigors of that NFL schedule? Anything you're doing differently this offseason to get ready for it, knowing what it takes?
Yeah, true. Like you said, that was the most volume I've had, in my whole entire career. It was the most time I touched the ball, like everything from, playing games to the minutes to the snaps to the yards, like everything. It was obviously a lot. But like I said, this offseason I've talked to some old heads. They put me on game on like, how to take care of my body. What should I do, what I shouldn't do. Because when we first hit that offseason, I was like still on go. I was still like going in to work out and like, doing separate stuff to like, keep my body going. But it was like, nah, bro, just relax. Like, go home, like lay down.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I can't just not do nothing, that just don't feel right for me. But they were like, well, if you don't want to do nothing, at least just like go do like a light yoga session or like go get massages.
I was literally about to say, like, the stereotypical thing that I always hear is, yeah, just do yoga.
Yeah. But even then, like, yoga, people think yoga is like this simple thing that doesn't like hurt your body. But like, if you're actually doing yoga, like, you're gonna feel it like the next
More
day.
than your typical lift.
Yeah, yes. But like I said, I've been working out like obviously a little bit differently this off season to get me ready for this next season. Last season I weighed like 207 to 210. Right now I'm like 210 to 212. So I'm trying to get to like that 215 range, but also still feeling good, still feeling fast and explosive. So yeah, like I said, I'm taking a little bit different approach to my weights. Make sure that like I'm healthy enough to take on a full 17 games plus playoffs. But then also making sure that like I'm still feeling that same way I felt last year.
Yeah, is that derived from, like you said, just trying to stay healthy and get through 17, or even adding weight? Is that even hinting towards like a little bit of a difference in play style, or like where does that kind of like derive from?
Yeah, really just being healthy for the year. I mean, my play style gonna be my play style. No matter really where I'm at or who I'm going against or what offensive scheme I'm in, like I'm gonna do me regardless, just because like that's really what got me here, and that's what I'm gonna keep doing. You know what I'm saying? So like I really can't be anyone else or like act or run a different way. And I also think that like the coaches know that the coaches know like I'm going to run a certain way, and like the other people in the room are going to run their way. You know what I'm saying? So like everyone has their own running style. There's a lot of different types of backs, a lot of different sizes, shapes, different attributes everyone brings. But at the same time, like you got to be true to yourself. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's really, what I'm going to do. But like I said, I gained the weight really just from a health standpoint.
All right, before I keep talking to Tyrone Tracy Jr., I got to talk to you about DraftKings. Baseball fans, this season is heating up with every at-bat and every inning. The road to October is taking shape. There's no better time to get in on the action than with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers who use code JMFootball can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll score $300 in bonus bets. From walk-off homers to no-hitters in the making, you won't want to miss a single pitch. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers who use the promo code JMFootball bet just $5 on any wager and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code JMFootball only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Back to talking to Tyrone Tracy Jr. I know a lot of fans, like you'd mentioned, that backs are going to be who they are. Your trump card is going to be your trump card, and I think that's what makes a lot of people excited about the room this year, is that everybody's kind of got their trump cards, and it is a little different for each of the kind of the three of you, which is awesome. So I'm really excited about that. What was your biggest goal, like heading into this offseason? Like, is there something that you wanted to accomplish, something that you wanted to work on kind of heading into this season? Because at least I'll tell you what, and let me know if this is just like a fan theory or not. Like a fan theory that we always have when we talk about players and development and shit like that is, as the weeks go on in the regular season, I think it is very tough to get better, and like how am I going to focus on my long-term development in season? Like, no, man, I got to prepare for the Cowboys. You know what I mean? So what was kind of like that big picture thing that you wanted to maybe accomplish or get better at this offseason?
I would definitely say like explosiveness and my start-stop, if that, obviously for people if they're watching, start-stop is when you come into a complete stop and then accelerate to get back to high speed ASAP. So that was what I was working on because I know for a running back that is, paramount. Like that is literally something that's going to take you from being good, or great to exceptional. You know what I'm saying? You'll go from, being a top 10 back to being number one back, just from that attribute and having that in your bag. So, I was definitely working on that. Obviously, speed and agility that comes with it. But more so, like I said, my start-stop and making sure that like I'm not losing any speed. And if I am losing speed, I get back up to 100% right now. But yeah, that was probably my main thing. Like I said, the strength and stuff, obviously, you can work on that. But my main stuff was really the start-stop and being explosive.
Yeah, I mean, I even think back to like, this is kind of spoiling something that maybe I'm going to have you do in a little bit, but that Seahawks game where, I mean, they're when you have your 20-yard runs where, you got that safety linebacker 1-on-1, you're stopping, they're going forward, and they're going to the side, and you're going past them. So, I love that. August 20th, 2024, Do you know what that date is on the top of your head?
August 20th,
2024.
2024. August 20th, 2024. So that was last year.
Camp.
Yes, camp. I don't know.
Paul Pierce.
Dude.
I'm going
It said Paul Pierce.
to let you know right now. Like, we got the reports. Aircast.
Paul Pierce is crazy,
we're like,
yo. Paul Pierce is crazy.
You don't know about this?
I know about it, but like the Paul Pierce is crazy.
But we get like all the reports and like, all right, Aircast, and we're thinking like, all right, like we may see you next year.
Yeah.
Like you're having a good camp, and it's like, all right, damn, really wanted to see it, but we're not gonna. And then 2 days later, it's like, oh, you're just out there. So like, I need to hear about that. Like, were you thinking in the moment that it was it?
Oh yeah, no, I did. I definitely did. But you gotta understand that like I only thought that was it because of how the situation went down. Like they came over, they started feeling my leg, and like I had tape on. You know, I had tape and a sock and all that. He was like feeling my leg, and he was like, "Oh yeah, bring the car, bring the Aircast." So like instantly, I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's over with." Like, "Oh yeah, I'm done. It's grits for me. Hey, it's over with." I'm in my head like, "Oh yeah, it's done." Mm-hmm. But then we get to and it was actually hurting too. It was like I was in actual pain. So we get in there, I could barely walk, and they put me in the cast. It was hurting in the cast. So I'm still thinking like, yo, it's over with. But then we get to, go get x-rays and all that stuff. All that stuff happened. And I come back, I still come back for the rest of the day, go to meetings and all that. And then that next day, it starts to feel a little bit better. So I'm like, I'm like, let's see if I can like walk on it and stuff. And I went in there. They was like, well, it says you don't have anything crazy, nothing bad. High ankle sprain. I'm like, okay, all right, that's doable.
Mm-hmm.
I might just have to sit out a little bit. But then like I said, days go by and I start feeling better and better. They start taping it up, and I'm like, yo, I can play. I can run. But obviously, there's certain protocols and stuff you got to do to get back to playing. But
it felt like 2 days.
Yeah.
Like, he's just there.
Yeah.
Cool.
But mind you, like, everyone think it's on me. Like, every time someone brings up this situation, they think, like, I said something. Like, or I was like, oh, I broke my leg or whatever. No, it was really just because the situation, like, the media made it out to be like that. Obviously, everyone got their cameras out. And
you also, you were thinking the same. Aircast.
Yeah.
So, you're Paul Pierce.
Yeah, I know. Which it kind of stuck around for a little bit. Hopefully, like, we can, go somewhere else.
You want to go somewhere else?
Yeah, like, do like something else with the name. Like,
all right.
I need to get a different name or something.
Okay.
Everyone started calling me Trace towards the end of the year. I think
Trace?
that was pretty cool.
Okay.
And that's kind of stuck.
All right, so, Pro Football, like like basically your Wikipedia page, your Pro Football Reference. Yeah. We're gonna get Trace in there.
Yeah, that's tough.
I'll see if I can get Paul Pierce out of there because that's what it says right now.
That's tough.
We'll end off with some teammates superlatives. I think I got like 6 for you. Underrated funny guy on the team.
Underrated funny. Drew Phillips.
Okay.
Drew Phillips. If you ever been around a guy, like, he is very like outgoing and outspoken, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
And he's very funny. Like, he says whatever's on his mind, like he's saying it.
Yeah.
Like, it don't matter if it's goofy, dumb, like he's saying it. But sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's like, bro, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But like, so he's very underrated funny. Like he get laughs, little chuckles from me here and there.
Way too competitive in the locker room.
Way too competitive in the locker room.
Like, bro, you don't need to be taking this too seriously.
Yeah. Let me see. Shoot. Turbo. He be competing in everything. Turbo.
Yeah.
Or if y'all don't know, Turbo is Dante Miller.
Yeah.
Who else? KT. Kayvon. He be competing in everything. Shoot, I do, but I'm gonna keep myself out of it. But yeah, them two, Turbo and KT.
Best dancer.
Best dancer?
Yeah.
No one really dances, but like obviously Malik be doing all his little touchdown stuff too.
It was like, you don't dance. You're Superman.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, when I celebrate, it's more like energy.
Yeah.
I'm a big energy guy. So like, I'm yelling and like, you know, doing some crazy stuff. Like I don't do nothing calm.
Yeah.
Like
I'm a big roar guy too. So we compete in what's called warehouse games here.
Yeah.
Like we have a whole warehouse where we like it's our own like sports league. I'm a big roar guy whenever I do something good. So
you know what's crazy? That when I did the Superman, I was on the sideline and Nacho, he came up to me. Like I think we was losing or whatever, but he was like, "Bro, why not you? Like, you know, why can't you go do something? Why can't you turn to Superman?" And literally that drive, that's when I broke off like a 40-yard, and that's literally why I did. That's why I was like, I'm Superman.
Was that Seahawks game?
No, it was the
Steelers.
Yeah, Steelers. The Steelers game.
Most likely to use the bathroom when the bill gets to the table.
Most likely to use the bathroom. Tay Banks. Jalen Hyatt. I feel like Jalen Hyatt do something like that. Dale. I feel like Dale. Receivers, really receivers. I'm gonna say the receivers because receivers, they be pampered. But yeah, definitely Tay Banks and Jalen Hyatt for sure.
Who's got the best Instagram game?
What do you mean by that? Instagram game?
Like who has like the best profile? Cleanest profile, captions.
Captions, all that.
Not just sponsored posts.
Let me see. Let me think. Before he left our team, it was probably Zay Simmons. He had some fire stuff on there. Dane Belton. He's very low key. I don't know if y'all be on his page, but he be wearing some fits. Like he got some good posts up in there, from now and then. Who else? No one really else like every posting. KT be posting like brands and stuff like that. So
no sponsors.
Yeah, let's say Dane, he be like he's very fly.
All right, Dane Belton. How do you like that? Tyrone Tracy, thank you, man.
Always.
Good luck this season.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm out here. I love talking with y'all.
All right, again, I want to thank Tyrone Tracy Jr. for coming on the show. It's the first player review that I've ever done in office, which is kind of cool. New achievement, and we're checking stuff off in May. How do you like that? There are a couple things that I want to talk about as we end the episode, because there's stuff that I look at. There's stuff that I'm thinking about with this football team, and you gotta fill the void as the months go on and as the slow time goes on. But next week, they're going to be OTAs. I think they're going to be happening Monday and Tuesday, or for 3 days. I will try and get a beat reporter on next week to talk about OTAs, because they're going to have access for a day. It's been a while since we've had any reporter on. I think Dunleavy, the day before the draft, or the day of the draft, was the last reporter to come on. So we'll get a beat reporter on. We'll talk about the draft class. We'll talk about the energy and the optimism that's kind of heading into this year. I mentioned it that Giants fans are united. I think Tyrone Tracy kind of liked that at the start of the interview. So, but there's a couple things I want to talk about, because especially as the schedule came out, and Sean Morash and I are talking about, the Giants need to start fast, and it's an every fucking year thing, man. Every year, Giants need to start fast, and for our own sanities too, to want to be somewhat invested in this football team after the month of September, and it gets to the middle of October, and not wanting to turn off football games. And I know how this fan base works, and we see it every year. It's a lot more fun when you're winning, and it's a lot more fun when you're relevant. Doesn't even have to be like winning 10, 11 games, just being average. Like you can be average, and that's been like my main frustration with the Giants as they've been bad, is that like being average is okay. You don't need to be god awful dog shit. So as we're looking at, and as I'm looking at, all right, the Giants need to get off to a fast start, and that's such a priority. I wanted to look at what was the Giants' points per game broken down by month while Brian Daboll has been the head coach of the team, because I have the theory and the feeling that we watch one team in training camp, and then they get out there week one, and they just aren't prepared. Like even the Titans game, say whatever you want about the Titans game, and Dayball's of Steel going for 2. Like the offense, they had Saquon Barkley explosive plays and the Sterling Shepard explosive play. and I thought that would set the table for what was hopefully going to be an explosive year in 2022. It was not. Barkley was explosive, though. They've started the season, for the large part, very unprepared. Now, I give them a pass in 2022. Here's why. You had Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney as your two main receivers, and Sterling Shepard, all summer, all training camp. Sterling Shepard is your slot, or they go the outside. Kadarius Toney's your outside / slot, and then Kenny Galladay's your outside receiver. And then by the time that September, the middle of September comes, we all know that none of those three guys are really going to be a factor. Tony's a fuckhead. Galladay can't move, and Sterling Shepard gets hurt, and then here comes Darius Slayton and David Sills, coming to save the day, right? So 2022, I give them a pass. But what they did in 2022 that they have not done since is we saw a coaching staff that adjusted. We saw a coaching staff that I thought was going to be adaptable. Where in the years since, in 2023 and 2024, same quarterback, might I add. I understand Daniel Jones is a huge part of this and is a huge talking point in this narrative of starting out fast. And when you look at points per game broken down month while Brian Daboll's been a head coach, Daniel Jones is kind of a huge part of that. And certainly people in the Giants building have, they made him to be the enemy last year, and he was enemy number one, and we need the quarterback. And Brian Daboll talks about after the Colts game how he needs quarterback play. But 2023 and 2024, we see offenses that are trying to be aggressive, and Brian Daboll's trying to instill that in Daniel Jones. And I think that's good. You should demand. It should be a requirement for your quarterback to be aggressive and to want to be explosive and value the explosive plays and how much it increases your floor as an offense. I mean, look at the Tennessee Titan game from week 1 of 2022. A bad offensive game that was won by explosive plays. That I think is the perfect game example as to why explosive plays really matter and how they can win you a football game. So Daboll has tried to push that as the summer has gone on almost every single year and almost every single training camp. But then what we see in the month of September is a team that cannot do that. Yes, Daniel Jones, quarterback driven, but what they did in 2022 is they adjusted. They have not been able to adjust properly besides that. I think 2023, you saw Tyrod Taylor, and there was some good glimpses there. So let's actually talk about Brian Daboll, the points per game broken down by month while he's been head coach. In September, they averaged 16 points per game. There's been 10 games that Brian Daboll has coached in the month of September. October, it gets a little bit worse. At 15.35, there's been 14 games in the month of October. November, it starts to get better. 17.72 points per game in 11 games. In December, bumps up even more. December is 20.25 in 12 games. And then January, really small sample size, 22.33 points per game. Now, if you want to put December and January together, since Brian Daboll's arrival, he's coached 16 games in the months of December and January. If you average out their points per game in those 2 months, it's 21.29. That would have been good for 22nd in the NFL this past year, and points per game in September and October, if you combine that, is 15.6. That's a 6-point touchdown difference. That is huge. Think of how many one-score games that the Giants lost this year, and 6 points could be the difference between winning and losing. So even though 22nd in the NFL is not great, but oh my God, I would take 22nd in the NFL in scoring in 2023 and 2024, because it doesn't mean that we're bottom 3 or bottom 2 or we're last. So they have the tendency, and this has been a running gag and a running joke for the Giants ever since the Tom Coughlin days too, of the Giants always win unnecessary and irrelevant games in December and January. But these numbers show that December, January, they're averaging 21 points per game. September and October, 15.6. Is that all Daniel Jones driven? I don't necessarily think so, because I think even in 2022, they kind of had a little bit of a revitalization in offense towards the end of the year. They had the Colts game. They had the 2 Vikings games. This is not counting the playoff game, by the way. But let's actually look at it in 2022. I have it. So 2022, a little bit different where September was 18.6. October in 2022 was 21.4. November was 20.66. December 21.5. And then January, only 2 games. They averaged 27 points per game. So it was pretty spread out even. But even there, you had September in 3 games. 3 games in September were still 3 points lower than what it was in October. I think it's the 2023 and 2024 examples that get a little bit more of the linear progression upwards, if you may. So I think that's number one priority. Mike Kafka talked about it. I think Mike Kafka even talked about it heading into 2023, where he was like, faster starts in games. Like, if faster starts in games in the first quarter, the Giants don't score in the first quarter. And then also just in general in the season, it's such a priority for them to start fast. So those are some numbers and some context around that. The final thing I want to talk about, I figured I wanted to do a quick little exercise of, everybody's talking about the Giants defense, right? Before I talk about the Giants defense, as I'm going in circles, before I talk about the Giants defense, I want to talk to you about our final sponsor of the day. Today's episode is sponsored by Hims. Men, if ED is getting you down, you need Hims to get your confidence and other things back up. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Giants. That's HIMS.com/Giants for your personalized ED treatment options. The products mentioned are chewable, compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Yeah, so the last thing I want to talk about. A lot of people I'm very excited about this Giants defense. And a lot of people are excited about this Giants defense too. And I think as they should be. There's a ton of new faces. There's a ton of new names. But I wanted to look at, the areas in which the Giants should improve from last year, some of the areas that I'm hoping improve, and then what's the stats and what's the areas that I want them to remain good in. So here is automatically the Giants' defensive stats that should improve from last year. They were 29th in EPA per play, which they were even like that even when Dexter Lawrence was healthy. This isn't just the Dexter Lawrence injury stat. They were bad against the pass even when he was healthy. They were 29th against the pass and 19th against the run. I thought they'd be a little lower against the run. Passes defensed, they were 26th in the NFL last year. They need to make more plays on the football. They added a lot of guys this offseason that certainly can do that. Their EPA per pass over 20-plus air yards, 32nd. And again, I think that goes to they didn't have guys that can make a play on the football, and or Shane Bowen needs to be more aggressive in his scheme and asking his safeties to do more. But it's one of those, is it the chicken or the egg situation? Was Shane Bowen conservative in his play calling because he had such a young secondary and a secondary that couldn't make a play on the football? Or is Shane Bowen just not that good of a defense coordinator? I think time is going to tell this year. Interception rate being 1%, that was 30th in the NFL. I'm pretty sure that was tied for 30th in the NFL too. That should improve from this past year. I mean, they were just a year removed from being number 1 in interception rate under Wink Martindale in 2023. I think they had the highest interception rate as a defense the year prior, and then quarterback rating allowed, they were 30th. So they allowed it was the third most. So that's not very good. Those are the stats that should improve from last year, and I kind of feel good about that. Paulson Adebo, I think that's a corner that's going to get targeted a lot. Historically, he's been a corner that gets targeted a lot. I've been on record saying over and over again, part of the reason why I loved bringing in like a guy like James Bradbury and Adoree Jackson is even though they're guys, they're not necessarily like these lockdown corners, but what made James Bradbury play like an all-pro in 2020 is that he was targeted a lot, but he made a play on the football. What made Adoree Jackson good is that, again, he can make these plays on the football. He can force incompletions. And that's what I hope that Paulson Adebo brings this year. I hope that Drew Phillips can take a step up in that department this year. Javon Holland as a safety. Tyler Nubin was a ball hawk at Minnesota. Put more on the plates of these guys. Now that we're heading into 2025 with these new additions, Shane Bowen needs to put more on the plate of these guys. And, as we're preparing for last year and we're talking about Shane Bowen's scheme, Nate Tice came on this show and was talking about, I think Shane Bowen is going to be part of a new wave of defensive coordinators that's going to disguise coverages and rotate things pre-snap and post-snap and confuse quarterbacks, not necessarily by, like a Brian Flores, Wink Martindale thing where guys are disguising stuff at the line of scrimmage, but disguising stuff in the secondary. That's kind of like Shane Bowen's MO. And I don't really know if he did that. I don't really think he did that all that much. So now that the personnel is there, Shane Bowen needs to add that to his bag, to his arsenal. Let Javon Holland be a pro. Let Tyler Nubin take on that responsibility. He kind of did it at Minnesota. I think he's ready for it. Here's some Giants defensive stats that I hope improve this year. And the biggest thing is rushing yards per attempt. 4.6, that was good for 26th in the NFL. This is the one area that I'm still very unsure of when it comes to the Giants. They added good defensive line depth. I love Darius Alexander. He's an older rookie though at 25 years old. He is going to provide, I think, a good immediate impact, especially considering the depth that the Giants had last year. I think that's the important thing to note with Darius Alexander, even if he isn't great within his first 1 to 2 years. Sometimes it takes these guys multiple years, as we've definitely noted before on the show. But it's still a little worried about the overall depth, really, because if Dex goes down, this run defense gets scary, and it gets scary bad. And there was a lot of responsibility that was put on the plates of the linebackers last year, and Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden. You want those guys to play more free. You want those guys to be a little bit more of playmakers. You still have edge rushers outside of Chauncey Golston that aren't awesome run stoppers and run defenders, right? They're good at getting tackles for loss. I think Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Birds, all three of those guys, I think they're going to get good chance that they get double-digit tackles for loss. Does that mean that I think they're good edge setters? No, I don't necessarily think that. So that's a stat in an area like the run defense that I hope improves this year. I don't have this great evidence that it will. Jeremiah Ledbetter out of Jacksonville, that's a guy that I really like. That's a guy that I think is going to come in, hopefully make some sort of immediate impact. Is he a world beater? No. Roy Robertson Harris from Seattle, I don't really love him. I like Ledbetter better, no pun intended, as a run defender. Obviously, you still have Nacho in here too, which I thought that there was a chance heading into this offseason that he could maybe even just be, a cap casualty, maybe you save a little bit of money, but no, Nacho's still around. He's still seeing, going to be the end of his contract. So still a little worried about the Giants' run defense, but overall, I hope that improves. Now, here are some Giants defensive stats that I want to remain good. And a lot of this is just centered around having a good pass rush. They were third in sack rate at one point when Dexter Lawrence was healthy between weeks 1 to 12. They did have a sack rate that was above 10%, which is pretty damn good and pretty damn impressive. The percentage of pressures that are sacks. This is a new stat in a new area that I do want to talk about. They were fourth in the percentage of pressures that wound up being sacks, because despite them being average in pressure rate, the Giant pressure rate or total pressures, right? The Giants were not awesome in their total pressures, but they were able to really put the quarterback on the ground, obviously with the really high sack rate, especially when Dexter Lawrence was healthy. And I think this is hopefully something that is going to transfer into next year. I'm not looking at the Giants' lack of overall pressure on the quarterback as an indicator of, oh man, I'm worried that they may not be able to replicate that. I think they're going to be able to replicate that because they have the same freaking people. I even like how Kayvon was more of a consistent winner in terms of beating the guy across from him in 2024 than what he was in 2023, despite a double-digit sack season. So I'm even excited about Kayvon. And obviously you add Abdul Carter and hopefully a full healthy season of Dexter Lawrence. So almost a quarter of the time, 1 out of every 4 times that the Giants are getting pressure on the quarterback, it's winding up in a sack, and sacks are drive killers, sacks are game changers, and they basically kind of guarantee that the ball's going back to your offense, which is awesome. They were 3rd in total tackles for loss, so again, that goes to the whole theme of this is a defense that is going to force negative plays. Kind of shocking to see how good they were in tackles for loss. They were 3rd in total tackles for loss, but 26th in rush yards per attempt allowed. Kind of a crazy discrepancy. And something that I talked about a lot last year is the Giants' time to throw, like the quarterback's total time to throw when they faced him, was the 2nd quickest in the NFL. And that's why I'm not concerned about the lack of pressure, because quarterbacks were also just getting rid of the ball so quick, on average of 2.68 seconds. But the Giants had an average time to pressure of 2.56, which was the 3rd quickest in the NFL. So basically last year, the good was the pass rush. The bad, a lot of the other stuff. And it's going to be on this secondary. It's going to be on the depth of the interior defensive line / need better play out of Bobby Okereke, more consistent play out of Bobby Okereke. And also plus, can the secondary be better run defenders? Devon Holland is going to come in here and be a plus in that category. Tyler Nubin already was one of the best safeties when it comes to run defense in the NFL. Drew Phillips was one of the best nickel corners against the run last year. Can all that stuff continue? Paulson Adebo, are you going to be a plus there? Deonte Banks, I don't really trust can develop in that category, but can you hide it? Can you hide the liabilities and the deficiencies of the defense and the areas in which they really need to improve, like making plays on the football, interceptions, forcing turnovers? That's the stuff that should improve based on the personnel that they have. But I want that pass rush to remain good. When you add Darius Alexander, hopefully a full healthy year at Dexter Lawrence, you can keep Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau fresh. When you have the additions of Abdul Carter and Chauncey Golston as well, a guy that can line up inside and outside as well. So there you go. That's an episode of Talking Giants. That is a thought dump of some stuff that I've been thinking about, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed Tyrone Tracy Jr. as well. I'll see you next week. I'm going on vacation this week, so I'll see you for OTAs. We'll talk with the beat reporter. Appreciate you. And Joey, take it away, man.
Let's go Giants!